Subscribe right now and hit the bell. Then you won't miss a chapter. And give the show a like. Comment with any thoughts and questions, and I will be happy to chat with you. Thanks for helping out this independent author.
Rat in a cage. Smack came the sound of a powerful slap across the cheek. "Now listen to me, you fool," Dr. D yelled violently. Josh listened while staying hidden around the corner of the EGO building. Dr. D went on, "Get your head out of the sand and focus. You have to find out now." There was a low, inaudible voice, and then Dr. D yelled, "Stop mumbling! Look at me and talk like a man!" "Yes, sir," came the slow and angry voice of Damien. Dr. D replied firmly, "Good. Now go." Josh quickly ducked down behind the bushes just before Damien walked around the corner and passed him by while rubbing his sore cheek. Josh waited, and a minute later, Dr. D's black private car pulled out with his driver behind the wheel. Josh had only gotten within earshot soon enough to catch the last bit of the conversation. What had they been talking about that was so pressing to find out, Josh thought, and how could Damien just let his dad hit him like that? Josh began to walk back into the building, and just then his smartwatch rang with the caller ID reading McClure. He has a phone now? Josh wondered. "Hello?" he answered tentatively. McClure's voice came through loud and clear. "Josh, I'm accessing the EGO security system camera feed. I can see you, and I saw and heard their whole conversation, as well as a few others over the past few weeks." Josh replied with excitement. "Great, what's going on?" "Well," came his response, "it seems that some of DiBolo's valued research has been repeatedly failing. In fact, it sounds as though he has been trying to discover how to do a whole BE transfer himself, but I think he intends to use a new host body, and he's been trying to manipulate Rachel into giving up information. He's been using Damien for this purpose and has been putting much more pressure on him recently to get what he wants out of Rachel." "I knew Damien was no good," Josh said with conviction. McClure's response surprised him. "Josh, we do need to be extremely wary of them both, but there is always hope for a way to reach a person. Damien is not falling in line blindly with what Diabolo wants, and he strongly resents him for his abusive ways. He is hurting, and I think that there is a good chance we can help him see the light and free him from his rat-in-a-cage way of life. Also, Rachel's gentle and kind strength has been working within him already. Maybe there is even a small chance for Dr. D himself." Josh thought about that for a moment, then said, "Okay, I hear what you're saying. Now that I think about Damien from his perspective, I get it. But we need to warn Rachel about it all. She's just not open to talking with me about anything personal right now. Maybe you will talk to her for me?" McClure's understanding words came over the phone. "Yes, of course. Always feel free to ask me for anything. In fact, I am talking with her right now and have been for a few minutes as well." It was now fall, and Rachel's summer internship was over. She had begun her freshman year at Stanford University, so she only had time to visit the lab for a couple hours each week. She would check in on the BIC's developmental progress and give her input. Over the summer, Josh and Rachel had slowly begun to talk more openly again, to the point where Josh even joined her and Damien for lunch periodically. All was now in place for the prototype trial to take place, and everyone was excited. Josh had chosen 2 young, strong, and healthy white rats as the first subjects. He named them Jack and Jill for no particular reason other than he thought it was amusing. The team had previously taken the rat's stem cells to use for the procedure. Then, using the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing tool made famous by researcher Emmanuel Charpentier, they successfully genetically modified a few of the cells as desired. This was done knowing that the rest of the surrounding cells would follow them and differentiate as needed once the microscopic bunch of cells was introduced to the host rats. This was a test not so much to see if the BIC would work as a biological wireless transmitter, but really a test to ensure that the gene editing was correct and that the desired BIC organ would grow as desired. If so, then at that point they could move on to testing its functional ability. After the injections were done, Rachel picked up the 2 white rats and held them up close to her face. She exclaimed in a baby voice, "Oh, just look at them. They're so good." Then Josh said with a chuckle, "Okay, put Jack and Jill back now. They need their rest." So she gently tucked them back in their separate cages. The simple implantation procedure had been a bit anticlimactic because the injection of the 2 rats only took a few minutes, but that was the beauty of it. The injection was merely the start of the process. The growth of the microorgan over the next week or so was the actual procedure. The small size of the bick, combined with the high metabolism, speedy growth of the young rats, allowed for an exciting, clear success over the following week. It was amazing. The bick had formed perfectly as desired in both rats. Josh, Rachel, and the team were elated and ready to see what the future would bring. Jack and Jill were both uniquely marked and placed to live with several other healthy rats. In this way, the team could record and observe their interactions with each other and how they relate to others. Was their communication with each other any different at all? Would they or could they even know how to use the bick? After all, they were still just rats. There were so many questions, but Josh had to believe that McClure had known what he was doing when he gave him the instructions for the bick. Several months went by, and it was now the spring of Rachel's freshman year. School was going well, and talking with McClure had helped her to understand more of who Josh really was. The way she thought about him and her friendship had drastically softened. He had always been an amazing and caring friend to her. Therefore, she decided that she could also be one back. Plus, she thought Josh was going to need a friend other than the digital Selden McClure if he was really going to change the world one day. Rachel had continued to cautiously spend time with Damien as McClure had suggested, but instead of him trying to dig for information as he had at first, he had actually begun to open up to her more. Damien told her of the genetic experiments with animals he had helped with and how Dr. D had continued to fail with his attempts on whole BE transfers. These failures and almost any random frustration would bring out wild and seething anger from him. Damien told her once, "I used to love him and his genius, but you know what?" He paused and clenched his fists angrily as he looked down and said, "I decided to hate him now. And I really do. Sometimes I just feel like I'm another one of his failed experiments. He wants me to be like him and do what he wants. But one day I'm leaving and I'm going far away." At the lab, research on the bick had slowed to a crawl, but there had been good feedback on the rat's health and normality. This meant that the bick was not causing any negative side effects, which was very important to establish. Yet, there was no evidence that the two were learning to communicate with each other any better than with the other regular rats. Josh had even tried to have McClure reach out to contact them wirelessly, as this was the true hidden goal, but McClure couldn't get through to them. There was one path of research that had shown some hope, though. Jack and Jill were drastically more sensitive to volume, vibrations, and music. The two seemed particularly disturbed by heavy metal and death metal styles of music even at low volumes, whereas conversely, classical and meditation music over other styles seemed to promote calm behavior and improve their performance over the other rats in challenges such as mazes. One morning, Josh woke up with a start and was feeling very uneasy. Something was irritating him, yet he could not place exactly what it was. He was just getting out of bed when his phone rang with a call from one of the lab techs. "Good morning," Josh was able to squeak out in a tired voice. And then he inhaled a quick bracing breath when he heard the tone of the female lab tech's voice. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Macias, but you may want to come in as soon as possible." "Is there a problem?" came Josh. The technician's voice sounded concerned. "Well, Jack and Jill were acting normally with the group until about an hour ago. They began to become increasingly disturbed and frightened. Now they are both shaking terribly and are running around frantically trying to find a way out. Sir, they are acting more upset than when they are exposed to heavy metal." Josh was out the door and at the lab 20 minutes later. "How are they?" he asked as the lab tech met him at the entrance. She responded calmly. "Their paws began to bleed a bit from all the clawing at the large metal cage. They're still acting very disturbed, but are safer now that they are in the private glass tanks." "Okay, great," he said and started in with further instruction. "Have continual video and audio observation on them and record it." "Already happening, sir," she came back. When they arrived at the tanks, the two white rodents were jumping and running with full-on terror. Josh said in a concerned but calm tone, "They're going to kill themselves going non-stop like this. Ready 2 sedatives now. We have to make them calm down. Then we can do scans and further testing to see what's going on." "I'm on it," the tech said as she hustled out of the room. A minute later, the tech returned ready to deliver the shots, but Josh quickly held up his hand. "Wait," he said. "Look, they are beginning to calm down. Let's give them a couple more minutes. I want to see what they do." A few minutes went by as they watched their subjects intently, and sure enough, Jack and Jill went back to normal. They were eating and drinking a lot, but they were calm again. The tech spoke up. What in the world was that about? Josh, distant in thought, responded a few seconds later. "I'm not sure exactly, but I would guess their Bix picked up on something, and I'm going to find out what. But run the usual scans and keep them monitored. I'm going to step out and make some calls." Josh stepped outside, and immediately his phone rang with a call from McClure. "Did you get all that?" Josh asked. McClure responded fervently. "Yes, I did. And Josh, listen to this." 30 minutes later, the tech came outside to find Josh, She waited as he finished speaking. Yes, I understand, but I will need to think about this. Yes, I will call her soon. Bye. He tapped his wrist phone and looked up at her with excitement. Josh said confidently, The scans came back normal, didn't they? Yes, how did you know? She asked. There was a small tremor of an earthquake that rated only 2.5 on the Richter scale just before the time you said their disturbed activity began. She responded with understanding. Oh, okay, so they picked up the vibrations when the other rats couldn't? Josh lifted his hands in excitement. Yes, I think so. But the crazy thing is, these little microquakes are a very common daily occurrence in this region, so there must be something else going on, and there is. I found out that roughly 4 times as many microquakes as usual happened, in close succession, all over our region as well as other major quake centers as far away as Illinois, and this is not a common occurrence. Suddenly, they noticed the sunlight beginning to dim quickly. Josh was confused for a second, but then he remembered what he had heard on the news of the astronomical event that was going to happen. It was the Great North American Eclipse, and it was beginning now. You know, Josh said to the lab tech as they both turned their eyes away from the sky in a protective response from the light. In ancient times, a solar eclipse was always considered a sign that something bad was about to happen. It was a bad omen. It was over a week later when Rachel drove up to Josh's house. He was outside waiting for her, and they greeted each other with a quick hug. I'm glad you came to help. You're the best friend ever, Josh said with a smile as he opened the door for her. And then he went around to the passenger door and grabbed a large bag with a red staff of Aesculapius, the medical symbol of a single snake winding up a pole. I know, she said matter-of-factly, and with a little smirk said, I can't let you do all the cool stuff alone. They walked into the garden, past the little green bot tending the plants, and her tone changed to a more serious one. She said, So I brought the stuff you asked for, but what on earth are you planning to do with it? Josh responded with the same seriousness. You know how Jack and Jill have consistently been responding to this week's increasing frequency of microquakes? She said, Yes, it's pretty amazing. He continued, Yeah, and that, along with the other observations of their responses to different tones and music styles, all supports the hypothesis that the big is working at a pretty sensitive level. But let's get to the shop, and McCurr can help me explain more of what we're going to do. Rachel responded, Okay, but I have a feeling I'm not going to like this. Josh set the medical bag down on a table as Rachel greeted McCurr. Hello, Mr. McCurr. How are you today? McCurr responded politely. Good evening, my dear Rachel. I'm excited and hopeful, but remember, you could have said hello to me at the bot in the garden, at the front door, or almost anywhere really, and I would have heard you. Rachel answered back with obvious realization. Oh, yeah, I know that. It's just that I don't even think about it as I associate the shop with you, like it's your home or something. But I know that's no more true than saying that water is only in the Pacific Ocean. McCurr laughed and responded, Yes, that's very true, and I think that is quite an accurate analogy. Josh spoke up. Okay, so I think we can begin to fill in Rachel on some things. Tell her what happened today.
Be sure to share the show with friends and write an Amazon review. Get the entire audiobook right now. Go to sa.vanderwerf.com to get it at an extremely discounted price. To receive the free ebook and my wallpaper book cover image, just sign up for the newsletter at sa.vanderwerf.com. Then you can be notified for the release of the anticipated sequel to The Man Who Made Himself. Thanks so much and enjoy the gifts.